Have you ever wondered if the world around you is actually real? Or if it's only real because you're looking at it? What if I told you that reality, everything you see, touch, experience, isn't fixed, isn't permanent, and most shockingly, of all, isn't even there until your mind chooses to observe it? This isn't science fiction. This isn't a motivational slogan. It's a well-documented phenomenon known as the observer effect, and it's backed by quantum physics. Supported by thinkers like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and explored deeply in both scientific journals and ancient spiritual traditions. In this video, we're going to break down a truth that's so radical, so disruptive, it might just flip your entire view of life upside down and give you the keys to rewrite your reality from the inside out. So here's the deal. What you're about to discover isn't just inspiring, it's transformative. It's not about positive thinking or repeating affirmations. It's about understanding the invisible mechanism that shapes your day-to-day experiences, your relationships, your health, your success, all of it, through the simple but powerful act of observation. When you watch through to the end, you'll understand why your attention, not your hustle, not your willpower, is the single most creative force in your life. And you'll walk away with practical tools to start using this awareness, starting today. Because reality isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you participate in and shape moment by moment. Now let's be clear. This isn't some new age fantasy or secret wish-making recipe. The roots of this idea go back to one of the most famous experiments in modern science, the double-slit experiment. If you've never heard of it, here's the short version. Scientists fired subatomic particles, like electrons, through two slits onto a screen. When no one observed the particles, they behaved like waves. They existed in multiple places at once, across all possibilities. But the moment someone observed the experiment, the particles instantly collapsed into a single fixed position. In other words, the act of observation changed the outcome. Let that sink in. The observer wasn't just watching. They were creating the reality. That's not just mind-blowing, that's paradigm-shattering. Think about the implications. If particles, the building blocks of everything, respond to observation by becoming real, then your consciousness isn't just noticing reality, it's calling it into being. And that means you're not a passive character walking through a script that's already written. You're the director. You're the storyteller. You're the one holding the camera, deciding where to look, what to focus on, what version of the scene will show up. Your attention, your energy, your emotional state, those are the tools through which the universe listens, responds, and shapes your life. In this video, we'll explore how this quantum truth applies to your actual life, not in theory, but in practice. We'll go through 5 key parts after this intro. In part 2, I'll take you deeper into the science behind it all, not too technical, but clear enough to make you see your world differently. We'll look at how this observer effect is no longer a fringe idea, but something scientists and spiritual teachers alike are recognizing is essential to how reality works. In part 3, we'll unpack how your focus acts like a sculptor, choosing which version of your life becomes solid and which fades into the background. You'll understand why where you place your attention is more powerful than your effort or your words. In part 4, we'll dive into the world of emotion, frequency, and vibration, how your unconscious beliefs and emotional states can override your intentions if they're out of alignment. This is where the real work begins, coherence. Then, in part 5, we'll shift into action, how to intentionally observe the version of yourself and your future that you want to experience, even before it arrives. You'll learn what it means to act as if, from an energetic, not just behavioral, perspective. And finally, in part 6, we'll explore the idea of the silent observer, a powerful inner state where manifestation becomes natural, not forced. You'll learn how to stay grounded, clear and connected to what you want, even when nothing seems to be happening yet. By the end of this video, you'll see why trying to change the outside world without changing your internal observation is like trying to fix your reflection in a mirror without touching your face. It's backwards. And once you get that, everything changes. You'll stop reacting to circumstances and start consciously selecting them. You'll stop chasing outcomes and start aligning with them. So if you've ever felt stuck, if you've ever felt like life keeps repeating itself, no matter how hard you try to break free, this video might just explain why, and more importantly, what to do about it. Because the truth is, your life isn't fixed, it's fluid, and it's waiting, not for you to prove you're worthy, but for you to observe it into form. Stick around, because what's coming next isn't just information, it's transformation. Let's dive in. Let's go deeper, because this is the part where science starts to sound like magic. But it's not magic at all. It's physics. And it changes everything. One of the most fascinating discoveries in modern physics is something called the double-slit experiment. At first glance, it sounds simple. Scientists fired tiny particles, like electrons, through two slits to see how they would behave on the other side. What they found defied common sense. When no one was observing the experiment, the particles acted like waves, spreading out, interfering with each other, as if they were in many places at once. But the moment someone measured or observed them, the particles stopped behaving like waves and instantly became particles, solid, fixed in one place. That's right, just the act of observing changed how they behaved. The observer wasn't just watching something happen. The observer's attention was part of what made it happen. This discovery sent shockwaves through the scientific world. Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman once said the double-slit experiment contains the only mystery of quantum mechanics, meaning it touches the very edge of what we understand about reality itself. What this tells us is that, at a fundamental level, the universe is not a fixed, objective machine. It's more like a field of potential outcomes, a sea of probabilities waiting to take form, and the deciding factor, the thing that determines which version of reality becomes real, is observation. But what does that mean for you and me? It means the world isn't just something we live in, it's something we actively participate in shaping. Not metaphorically, but literally. We tend to think of reality as something we discover, something out there that we try to understand or control. But what if that's backwards? What if reality is more like a canvas, and your focus, your attention, is the brush? What if your state of awareness is not just a bystander to events, but a central ingredient in the recipe of what becomes real? This is the shift that changes lives, realizing that what you see is not always the full truth, but often a reflection of what you're consistently focusing on, consciously or unconsciously. And here's where it gets even more interesting. In recent years, thought leaders across fields, from neuroscience to metaphysics, have started connecting the dots. Dr. Donald Hoffman, a cognitive scientist from UC Irvine, suggests that what we perceive as reality is more like a user interface than a mirror. Just like the icons on your phone don't show you the raw code running underneath, your sensory experience doesn't show you the full complexity of the quantum world. It only shows you what you need to see to function, and that interface is shaped by your mind's expectations and focus. In simple terms, what you're looking at is influenced by what you believe you'll find. The observer effect isn't just about science, it's about life. It's about waking up to the possibility that every moment holds multiple outcomes, and the one you consistently focus on is the one that crystallizes. You don't discover the path, you help carve it. You don't just navigate reality, you help define it. And that brings us to a powerful realization. If reality is not fixed, then neither are your limitations. If the world is built on possibility, then what you choose to see becomes what you start to live. As we move into the next section, we'll explore exactly how your attention acts like a tuning dial. How every moment, your mind is selecting a frequency, and that frequency is silently shaping your experiences. Stick with me, because once you understand how this mechanism works, you'll never look at your daily thoughts the same way again. Now that you understand reality is shaped by observation, let's uncover what might be the most overlooked secret in everyday life. Where you place your attention is what becomes your world. Focus isn't just mental effort, it's creative power. Your attention isn't passive, it's a sculpting tool, shaping one version of reality while letting others fade into the background. Imagine your focus like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever the beam lands, that area lights up, it becomes visible, tangible, real. Everything else remains in shadow. That's exactly how your consciousness works. Every moment, infinite possibilities are available, but only the one you give your attention to becomes your lived experience. And here's the kicker. This doesn't require force. It requires frequency. According to Dr. Joe Dispenza, your energy, not your effort, is what sends instructions to the quantum field. In his research with brain scans and heart coherence measurements, he found that people who could sustain focused intention with elevated emotion were able to activate changes in their biology and external results. Why? Because they weren't trying harder. They were aligning deeper. They weren't just thinking a thought. They were feeling the frequency of it as if it were already true. That emotional charge is the secret ingredient. Emotion energizes intention. Belief stabilizes it. When those two line up with focused observation, you create what's called an energetic blueprint, a signal your environment starts reflecting back to you. So it's not about hoping, it's about tuning. And you tune not by forcing outcomes, but by becoming emotionally consistent with the version of reality you want to live. That means if you want peace, you can't just wish for it while carrying anxiety. If you want abundance, you can't keep focusing on lack. Your dominant frequency always wins. This is where many people get stuck. They set goals with their mind, but their attention is trapped in the past. They visualize success, but keep noticing failure. The result? Mixed signals. And mixed signals create inconsistent results. But when you begin to focus with clarity, not just mentally, but emotionally and energetically, the field starts to rearrange itself. Focus becomes a form of selection. You're saying to the universe, "This is the version I choose." That's when momentum begins to shift. That's when reality starts catching up. It's not about waiting for signs. It's about becoming the signal. And yes, this takes awareness. It takes practice, but it doesn't take perfection. You don't need to do it all day. You just need to return your attention, again and again, to the version of you that already has what you desire. That version is already present in the field of potential. You bring it into form by seeing it, feeling it, and choosing to stay there. This is your creative superpower, and it's always on, even when you're not aware of it. Which is why it's so important to train your focus deliberately. In the final part of this video, I'll walk you through how to actually apply this, how to observe your future self and begin living from that place now. But before we move forward, if this is resonating with you, if you're finding clarity and value, make sure to subscribe and hit like so this message reaches more people. You can also share in the comments. What's one area of your life where you're ready to shift your focus and raise your frequency? I read everything, and it helps shape future content. Remember, the act of observing is not just noticing, it's choosing, it's selecting, it's forming. And where you consistently place that, focus becomes the version of life that grows. Let's keep going, because what's coming next is where everything starts to shift into action. Let's talk about the part most people miss, the silent force that shapes your life whether you know it or not, your vibration. You've probably heard the phrase, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. But what does that really mean? It means the energy you carry, not your words, not your goals, not even your hard work, is what sets the tone for the experiences you attract. Imagine trying to tune a radio to a jazz station, but your dial is stuck on static. No matter how much you hope to hear the music, until your frequency matches the right signal, nothing will change. That's how your vibration works. It's the emotional, mental, and energetic signal you're broadcasting 24 hours a day, often without realizing it. And the universe, or more accurately, the field of possibility all around you, responds to that signal, not your surface-level intentions. Here's where things get even deeper. Most of the signal you're sending isn't coming from your conscious mind. It's coming from your subconscious, the layer beneath your awareness that holds your beliefs, emotional patterns, self-image, and unresolved memories. According to neuroscientists like Dr. Bruce Lipton, up to 95% of your daily actions, reactions, and decisions are driven by subconscious programming. That means you might be consciously saying, I want to succeed. But if your subconscious is still resonating with fear, self-doubt, or unworthiness, then that's the frequency you're actually putting out, and that's the one life responds to. This is why so many people struggle to change. They think it's about working harder, speaking more affirmations, or visualizing longer. But the true shift happens when you change the emotional and energetic foundation beneath your thoughts. And that's where coherence comes in. Coherence is the state where your heart, mind, and body, your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are in harmony. It's when what you want, what you believe, and what you feel are aligned. According to research from the HeartMath Institute, when your emotional state becomes coherent, meaning your heart rhythm is stable and synchronized, your brain and body enter a state of optimal performance. You feel calm, clear, and connected. And that state sends a clean, powerful signal into the field. But when you're incoherent, when you want one thing but feel another, or when your conscious desires fight against subconscious beliefs, your signal becomes mixed. And a mixed signal brings mixed results. For example, you might visualize a healthy relationship, but if deep down you believe you're unworthy of love, the field doesn't hear your image. It mirrors your core belief. You might picture financial freedom, but if you're vibrating in scarcity or fear, the outcomes reflect that vibration. This isn't punishment. It's precision. The universe is like a mirror. It doesn't judge. It doesn't filter. It reflects. So if you want different results, you have to emit a different frequency. Not just think it, but feel it, live it, become it. And that's why self-awareness is your most powerful tool. Not in a surface way, but in a deep, honest way. What? Stories are looping in the background of your mind? What emotional patterns do you keep repeating? What beliefs were shaped in childhood that you never questioned? Becoming aware of these unconscious layers allows you to rewrite them. And once you do, your vibration naturally shifts because you're no longer trying to override old programming. You're replacing it. One simple practice to start building coherence is to pause for a moment each day and intentionally tune your emotional state. Choose a feeling that matches what you want to create, like gratitude, peace, or joy, and hold it. Breathe into it. Let your body memorize that state. The more often you return to that feeling, the more you shift your baseline frequency. And over time, what used to feel unfamiliar becomes your new normal, and your external reality adjusts accordingly. You're not faking anything. You're tuning into a version of you that already exists, one that's been waiting for your attention. Remember, you're not just thinking about your future, you're broadcasting it. Every emotion, every internal reaction, every belief you carry is a message to the field. So if life seems stuck, It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's a signal, an invitation to go inward, realign, and come back into coherence. Because when you do, things start to shift. Not because you're chasing them, but because you're finally matching them. If this insight is helping you see things differently, take a second now to like the video, subscribe for more content. Like this and share in the comments. What belief or emotional pattern are you ready to let go of today? That single choice could change everything. In the next section, we'll talk about how to step into the version of yourself that's already living the reality you want. Not someday, but starting now. You won't want to miss it. Let's keep going. Now let's bring everything into action, because this is the moment where you stop waiting for change and start becoming the change. The truth is, the reality you're experiencing right now is often just a reflection of your past focus. But that doesn't mean you're stuck. It means you have the power to shift it by choosing to focus on what can be, not just what is. This is where you move from reacting to life to creating it deliberately. One of the most powerful practices you can begin using right now is what many successful people, consciously or unconsciously, already do. It's the art of acting as if. But let's be clear, this isn't about pretending, faking, or forcing. It's about learning how to match the energy of the future you want to experience, as if it's already here. When you observe the future version of yourself, the one who already has peace, clarity, success, abundance, and you begin to feel like that person now, your vibration shifts. Your brain and nervous system begin to rewire. You start forming new patterns, and the field around you begins to respond. This is not speculation. This is supported by research in neuroscience and quantum biology. Dr. Joe Dispenza's work shows that when people rehearse a new state of being mentally and emotionally, not just visualizing it, but feeling it with emotional intensity, they begin to activate new neural pathways. Their brains stop firing in the same old survival loops and start building connections aligned with the new future they're envisioning. Over time, the body starts memorizing that new state. It becomes natural. And when your body believes it's real, the external world starts to mirror that internal shift. This is why it's so important not to wait for circumstances to change before you change your energy. You can't wait for the new job to feel empowered. You feel empowered first. You don't wait to meet the right person to feel loved. You feel worthy of love now. That's the frequency shift that changes the outcome. Here's how to begin in a way that's simple and real. Start each day by asking yourself, who is the version of me that already lives the life I want? What does that version feel like? What does their morning look like? How do they speak, think, and make decisions? Close your eyes, breathe into that image, and bring it into your body. Even just a few minutes of this practice can set your energy on a new path. And the more often you do it, the more natural it becomes. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something vividly imagined with emotion and something experienced in the physical world. So when you repeatedly observe your future self with emotional presence, you start attracting the experiences that align with that vibration. Let's take a simple example. Imagine two people who've just lost their job. One immediately focuses on fear, the bills, the unknowns, the panic. That person's vibration is rooted in lack. The result? More stress, more resistance, fewer opportunities. Now imagine the other person. They pause, breathe, and shift their focus. They begin asking, what's the opportunity here? Who could I become now? What does my next level look like? They start to visualize a version of themselves thriving, not in the future, but in the now. They begin showing up as that version, in the way they speak, think, and carry themselves. And even if nothing changes right away, their frequency has shifted and life begins responding. This is not about ignoring challenges or pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing what lens you look through. Because the lens you choose becomes the reality you start shaping. Think of this as training your attention to stay loyal to the future you desire, especially when it feels easier to focus on the past. When you feel off track, gently return to that future version of you. Anchor into how they feel. That emotional state is your compass. And when in doubt, remember this. Your energy is the invitation. It speaks louder than your words. It's not about convincing the world. It's about embodying the version of you that no longer needs convincing. That's what draws new outcomes toward you. It's not about doing more. It's about being more aligned. If you've been waiting for a sign to start showing up as the next version of yourself, this is it. Begin today. And if this message is helping you reconnect with your power, take a moment now to like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and share in the comments. What is one thing your future self would do differently starting today? That one small shift might be the moment your entire path begins to change. And in the next section, we'll dive into the most powerful state you can enter, the silent observer, where true transformation becomes effortless. Let's keep moving forward. Let's end this journey with the most powerful shift of all. The place where true creation begins not with effort, but with presence. This is the state of what many call the silent observer. It's not just a mindset, it's a way of being. And once you understand it, you'll never need to chase your dreams again, because you'll realize they're already moving toward you. The silent observer is the part of you that watches without fear, without judgment, without needing to control every outcome. It's the inner awareness that doesn't panic when things feel uncertain. It's steady, calm, and deeply trusting. And that stillness isn't passive, it's powerful. Because when you learn how to stay grounded in presence without constantly reacting, you create space for new possibilities to unfold. In this state, you're not trying to force your future into place. You're tuning into it, aligning with it, and letting it take form naturally. This isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing less from fear and more from clarity. You're no longer driven by desperation or doubt. Instead, you act from knowing, from faith, from a sense of inner stability that doesn't depend on what the outside world looks like right now. Many ancient teachings point to this same truth. In mindfulness traditions, it's the awareness behind the thought, the part of you that can witness without attachment. In neuroscience, this parallels what's known as metacognition, the ability to notice your thoughts and emotional patterns without being swept up by them. In both cases, this ability gives you freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to respond with intention instead of reaction. And that's exactly where transformation begins. When you embody the silent observer, you become the anchor in the storm. You stop asking, when will this happen? And instead ask, who do I choose to be right now? And that choice, repeated consistently, begins to shift your vibration. You start radiating stability, confidence, and clarity. And the world, as always, responds to your frequency. You see, you don't have to convince the world that your dreams are real. You just need to become the version of you that lives as if they already are. Let that sink in. Stop trying to prove your dream is possible. Become the vibration of it. That is the essence of the silent observer. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. But it's incredibly magnetic. People can feel it when someone is deeply rooted in their vision. Not because they're pushing for it, but because they've already claimed it internally. When you live from that place, you stop chasing signs and start becoming the signal. You stop waiting for something outside of you to change and begin shifting from within. That's when life starts moving, not because you're forcing it, but because you're no longer resisting it. If this resonates with you, let it be a reminder. You don't need to wait for a miracle. You already are the miracle. You don't need permission to become who you're meant to be. Reality isn't fixed. It's responsive. And it's waiting for your lead. So pause, breathe, let yourself come back to the quiet knowing that everything is still unfolding. You're not behind. You're not off track. You're learning how to stay present with your power, even when things look uncertain. That's the greatest skill you can build. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. And that consistency, not in effort, but in alignment, is what transforms your path. Every time you return to presence, every time you choose trust over fear, you strengthen the signal. And that signal begins shaping your life in ways that often feel like synchronicity, but are really just precision. So as we close this video, I invite you to take a moment and reflect. What is one way you can practice becoming the silent observer today? Share it in the comments below, not just to express it, but to commit to it. Because that commitment sends a new message to your field. You're not just consuming information, you're embodying it. And that shift from knowing to becoming is where everything begins to change. If this video brought you value, feel free to like it, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who's ready to hear this message. But more importantly, carry this frequency with you. Observe from presence. Choose from clarity. Trust the timing. And remember, your reality is not out there. It starts in here. And it's listening, always.